It's Thursday on Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand, happy to be back for another day. Hope everybody is having a tremendous Thursday out there today. Happy Twins home opener to those who celebrate. We'll have more on that in just a minute. Lots of other good stuff on this show. Velle E. Neal III, Star Tribune columnist, joins me here in just a little bit to talk Vikings, to talk Twins, and to talk Timberwolves. Lots of stuff with Velle here in just a minute. Wild at the end of the show. Gophers women's basketball championship in a little bit here as well. Timberwolves sale news here in a moment. But first, what did I miss? 2 in a row for the Twins. Good for them. Maybe the panic over the first 4 games was a little bit premature. They looked bad. We know they looked bad. They looked terrible. But a good thing to remember is that they have been an up and down team. Generally speaking, always, right? Like, teams are streaky. They go in streaks. Last year's team, I'll mention this to Velle later. Last year's team actually started 7-13. I think people forget that. They started 7-13, got to 70-53, which means they went, 63-40 in kind of the middle 103 games of the season. It was the start and the end of the year that were horrendous for the Twins last year. But after that slow start and before that awful finish, they were terrific for about 3 or 4 months. So keep that in mind. I'm not saying they're going to go on some kind of massive hot streak, but they have won 2 in a row now, 6-1 over the White Sox. Rain-delayed game on Thursday. Probably got back home a little later than they wanted to in preparation for today's home opener against the Houston Astros, but coming home with 2 wins, 2-4. Pablo Lopez, very good outing, 7 innings, 1 run allowed. That was something they needed. Their starters have not generally been effective, nor have they been working deep in games. So he takes a little bit of the burden off of a bullpen that's already been overworked this season, lets them rest some arms, get them fully ready to go for this one coming up here on Thursday, the home opener. Harrison Bader. Let's have a little Harrison Bader appreciation. By the way, I was looking up Harrison Bader. Don't know a whole lot about him. Apparently his nickname is Tots. I want to know why. I'm going to figure this out. Maybe we've written about it and I missed it, but I want to know why Wikipedia says Harrison Bader's nickname is Tots. I got to figure that out. He's hit 3 home runs already this season, including 1 yesterday, 1 the day before that. He's picking on some very hittable pitches, and he is cranking them to left field. This is a guy who brought in to be a 4th outfielder. Good defense. Yeah, he's got some history of maybe hitting 10 to 15 home runs in a season. Had some pretty good years with the Cardinals. Most of those were probably 3, 4, 5 years ago, so don't know what you're getting. But so far, at least, Harrison Bader, if you're kind of like ranking or looking at how Twins, 4th outfielder types have fared in recent years, he's more Michael A. Taylor so far than he is Manny Margot. That's a good thing for the Twins. He looks like he's ready for a redemption season. He looks ready to cash in and extend his career. I think he's 30 right now, so a guy who's kind of right on that cusp. If you have another bad year right now, you might find yourself as a non-roster invitee next year, something like that. Your job opportunities are going to start to evaporate if you don't put together a good year. Already 3 home runs for Harrison Bader, so that's been big for the Twins, a sure bright spot. Lopez was a bright spot yesterday. Buxton hit a home run yesterday. That was big for them. Seem to have gotten a little bit of their mojo back. Rocco Baldelli was like, be patient. It's going to come. Wait for that one big inning. Then they got those 5 runs Wednesday kind of out of nowhere. Got some breaks in that inning. They were down, remember, they were down 3-0, top of the 6th, already 0-4 against the White Sox. Like, that had the potential to be extremely negative. You lose that game. There was no guarantee they were going to get yesterday's game in. And even if they did, there was no guarantee they were going to win. So they could have come home winless. Instead, they're coming home 2-4, not where they want to be. But when you start 0-4, 2-4 looks a lot better, feels a lot better. Maybe a little bit of positive momentum coming into a home opener. However, will be very chilly here today. It looks like 40-ish degrees, overcast. Not enough to cancel the game, but not going to be extremely pleasant opening day weather. You're going to probably have to wait for a week or two before you get those really nice home days for the Twins. So if you're out there, bundle up, get ready. Maybe they'll make it 3 in a row against the Astros. Don't want to spend too much time on this, but it feels important as another kind of step along the way. We learned Wednesday that Glenn Taylor, longtime owner of the Timberwolves and Lynx, also the owner of the Star Tribune, is not going to fight the arbitration ruling that said Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry can proceed with the purchase of the Timberwolves and Lynx. So one more hurdle removed. Now Lowry and A-Rod await approval from the NBA. You would imagine that is going to happen. They've been vetted along the way. As long as they've got the money to finish this thing off, you would imagine that transfer of the franchises would take place sometime in the coming months. So could be getting to the end of a journey that feels like it has taken forever. This thing started like 4 years ago. The arbitration was like a year ago. Not arbitration wasn't a year ago, but the process of Glenn Taylor saying, wait, I don't want to sell the teams anymore. You missed a payment. That started like a year ago. It was a little over a year ago. So this has been an ongoing process. Feels like we're finally getting to the finish line. Now the real questions can pop up. As soon as the NBA approves this, which we would imagine they would, as soon as the NBA approves this, you start wondering, okay, now where are we going with arena stuff? Are they going to get a new arena built? How soon are they going to start, kind of pushing those boundaries? Especially, hey, this maybe isn't the best time to be going and asking for money right now, or building something. Heard that maybe steel and other things are going to be a little bit more expensive these days than they used to be. So that might not be a great time to build something, but we'll see about that. That could always change tomorrow, as it has several times before. So you never know, but getting this to the finish line, getting this to the NBA approval level will be a big thing. Finally kind of cleared one more hurdle on this kind of long odyssey. It's been so long, the NBA is so lucrative that this franchise has like doubled in value since it was sold for $1.5 billion. You look at recent valuations, I think from CNBC, $3.25 billion for the Timberwolves. I saw Sportico did a Lynx valuation of about $85 million. That was less than a year ago. So lots of value in these teams, lots of value in professional sports ownership. No wonder they want to get in the game. Maybe they're getting closer to the finish line now. It is daily delivery debate time. Velle E. Neal III joins me on the segment today. Velle, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are things with you?
Pretty good. We got the kids back in school. Spring break took forever. It was fun, but man, good to have them back in school and
back to normalcy.
Somewhat normalcy, yes, as normal as it can get around here. Things are not normal in Minnesota sports. There's always something happening. We got 3 good things to talk about today. Let's go right off the jump. Twins started the season 0-4. Lavelle, they did win. They did win one on Tuesday to finally get out of there, but they're not a great start to the season. I want to know from you, sir, what are we concerned about, and what are we maybe not concerned about so much that you think will smooth out as regarding the start to this year for them?
I'm concerned I need to have my brain examined, because I wrote in spring training that this team was going to hit and offense should not be a problem for the 2025 Minnesota Twins, but it has been a significant problem, despite all the efforts that Rocco went to and the new slew of hitting coaches went through to get this team prepared for a regular season. In particular, getting the regulars more at bats, discussions about until the weather warms up, just work on making solid contact, not trying to hit home runs, use the whole field more, put the ball in play, be more of a contact team. I've not seen any of that through the first 5 games of the regular season, as we're taping this on Wednesday morning, the day before the 3rd game against the White Sox. So that is troubling to me. It's very troubling that the 2 players who have the potential to be 5 WAR players and above, Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa, have gotten off to terrible starts at the plate, despite both of them saying they felt great going into the regular season, and after both got plenty of at-bats during preseason games. So or spring training games. Sorry, I get football and baseball terms mixed up sometimes.
No problem.
So this is upsetting me. And the other thing too, and Jim Suhan touched on that a couple of days ago. It's been a running conversation with us over the last 2 to 3 years. It may be more difficult to put together a lineup without having a bona fide number 3 or number 4 hitter than worrying about who your leadoff hitter is going to be. In theory, if you want to have your best OPS guy lead off, and so he can get 30 to 40 more bats a year, I get that because you're putting that OPS in play more often, and that is to the betterment of the team. But when Rocco had Nelson Cruz in the middle of that order, batting 3rd or 4th, it gave the Twins an identity. There's no fulcrum to this offense. They had fulcrum with Joe Mauer and Justin Morneau. They had a fulcrum with Nelson Cruz. They don't have that. It'd be great if someone could emerge in that role. I still remember being slightly shocked a year ago this time, sitting in Rocco's office before the home opener going, who's your best option to be a cleanup hitter? He says, probably Royce Lewis. Now, that at the time it said a lot about Royce, but at the same time, it also said a lot about what they didn't have elsewhere in that lineup. So that's got me worried here. So if the Twins are ever sold and the new owners want to make a big splash, go trade for Vlad Guerrero, give him the $575 million, and let the offense flourish.
I agree with that. Offense, to me, is the biggest concern. I think it was the biggest concern going into the season, at least if we were ranking relative ways that they might go astray. Now, it's as we record, we've only seen them play 5 games, but yes, they scored 6 runs through the first 4 games, and they were getting shut out by a rookie before they got some walks and some, seeing eye hits to go through for that 5-run inning. Then Harrison Bader hits the home run. So it got more comfortable Tuesday night for their first win. But before that, they weren't hitting at all. And they were trying to say, yeah, we're still hitting balls hard, things like that. Yeah, but if you're not producing, Correa, does even hit? I don't think he has hit yet. He's not been good at all. He's been struggling at the plate. He's been hitting some things hard, but still, you got to have something to show for it. So, yes, I think that was the biggest preseason spring training concern, and I think it still is the biggest concern. You're right. They don't have an identity on offense, especially with Royce Lewis probably going to miss a month of the season, another 4 to 5 weeks probably before he's back. Larnach is a good hitter, but putting him in the middle of the lineup puts a lot of pressure on him. Mm-hmm. Correa should be doing more. Buxton should be doing more. Flip side, the starting pitching has to be better than it was the first time through. That feels like more of a mirage to me than the offense feels like a mirage to me.
Well, I can't argue against that either. I was still more upset about the offense, but you're right. The starting pitcher is supposed to be kind of the bedrock of this team this year. And Pablo Lopez, I'm writing the column for tomorrow about what makes an ace pitcher in Major League Baseball today. And I think Pablo's probably in the top 20 starters in baseball. I'll give him in the top 20, but I don't know if he's in that ace group. When he doesn't have his best control, he's got to manage games, and he's got to figure out a way to eat up innings when he's a little bit off. And he was unable to do that in a season opener. So, and then Bailey Ober got blasted. I mean, he gave a 3-run homer, and Bailey doesn't do that. When he gives up a homer, it's usually a solo shot, and he kind of avoids that stuff. Joe Ryan wasn't bad. He was okay. Yeah, he wasn't bad in his outing. Paddock, I still think is going to be the first guy out of that rotation. Zebby twirled 5 strong innings for the Saints. I saw yesterday. So keep let's get the Zebby watch going here. I thought Simeon competed. The guy competes. He doesn't make mistakes. He tries to stay a step ahead of hitters. He only touched 92 in a gun, but he worked his way through 4 innings. I wish he would have gotten a 5th, but that's wishful thinking here. But yeah, I think the bullpen will take care of itself. It's going to look bad at the beginning of the year when you give up a couple of hits, and they've had to be activated earlier in games. So I think once the starters do their job, the bullpen will kick in as well. But to me, it's offense. They were 10th in runs scored last year, which isn't shabby. So it gave me confidence in writing that offense would not be a problem this year. But here we are, first full week of the season, and offense is a problem.
Is it bad enough? I mean, to me, it's bad enough. I wasn't overly sold on this team, but I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt going in. Has it been bad enough in the first week that we need to revise expectations, or is it too soon for that?
I think it's too soon. I think we got to see what they have. I would start getting nervous if because let's remember last year. I actually took my brother on a road trip to Pittsburgh last year in June. It was June 10th, June 11th. And the Twins were struggling offensively then. And I went into Rocco's office, and Rocco said, except for that 12-game stretch we had in the mid to late April, we would have the worst offense in baseball. He says, we got to start hitting, And then right after that game, they started hitting. So I don't know if they just can't avoid slow starts, but let's see what this looks like going into May before we start panicking. I'm just curious to see how many lineup combinations Rocco's willing to make at this point, because if he does something drastic, it's going to be seen or read as a sign of panic or nervousness. And do you want to send out those type of signals as early in the year? You just want the guys to kind of ride it through, and hopefully the veteran guys figure some things out. Or do you write that too long and risk writing that out too long and digging yourself a hole? So I'm curious to see how Rocco is going to manage his lineup in the next few days.
Good points there. And it is instructive to remember, like we forget, like this team got to 70 and 53 last season, but they also started 7-13. They were not good at the start of last year either. They struggled. They struggled to score runs. They struggled to win games. So you're right. There is time to right the ship. I mean, they were 7-13, then they rattled off 12 straight wins. So too early to panic, but also I think Royce put it well on Monday. Basically, you don't want to overreact, but you don't want to underreact either to their early season struggles. Vikings, now we've heard from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell about their quarterback situation. They're trying to they're still trying to have it both ways a little bit, showing faith in J.J. McCarthy, saying they expect him and believe that he can take the job. It still doesn't feel like that's 100% set in stone. They still want to see what he does in minicamp as the summer progresses, because this is a guy who hasn't played meaningful football really since he got injured in August last year. Are they setting themselves up with their current quarterback room to succeed or fail, Lavelle?
This ends up being an Aaron Rodgers question, doesn't it? God.
Well, kind of. They don't have any veteran backup right now, and it seems like they want to wait until after, I think it's April 28th, to sign any kind of veteran, because then it doesn't become part of the compensatory pick formula. So you're talking about Rodgers or Flacco or Tannehill, guys that aren't getting scooped up right away in the kind of primary wave of, top backups, possible starters kind of guys.
Yeah, I know. What's Nick Foles doing these days? Where's Andy Dalton these days?
Andy Dalton. Yeah, Andy Dalton would be fine. But yeah,
I don't know. You should sign with anyone.
I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable about where they are. I know it's going to get resolved. I'm just uncomfortable right now, I guess, with their quarterback room right now.
Sometimes some things need more time to shake out than others. And the Vikings are, you have to understand too, Kwesi's traded draft picks, and they don't have a lot of picks in this upcoming draft. So I think that they're salivating over the fact that they can put themselves in position to get some compensatory picks down in
2026.
Future.
Yeah.
So that is going to that's probably why they haven't signed someone by this point. And apparently they're not worried that they're going to lose someone or get poached by someone stealing someone they covet because of that deadline. So, it would be great to have the quarterback room settled by now, but you're not going to have every position settled. And to me, this is a signal that the day by day they're more prepared to hand the keys to the car over to the kid from the Chicago suburbs and see what he can do with it. So, because that was the other thing that I was happy to see. KOC, I think, put more clarity on the situation with Rodgers than Kwesi did. Kwesi kind of left the door open and put like a cinder block in between the door and the frame to keep it open, while KOC actually started closing the door a little bit. Due diligence, because if KOC wanted Rodgers, I think Rodgers would be here by now. I think he's going to have the final say on who he wants in that quarterback room, and if he wants Rodgers, then it's going to happen. So I don't believe it. So I believe J.J. McCarthy and Brian Tannehill have the same agent, and so it won't be difficult to get him on board. But We'll see. There will be a veteran backup. We just don't know who he is. But I'm anxious to see what the J.J. McCarthy era looks like. It's going to be interesting because, how long is the Vikings window to win? Is it 1 year, 2 years before some of these deals expire or guys get too old? Harrison Smith came back thinking that he liked the offseason moves and he thinks they have a shot to win. This window's going to be navigated with a rookie quarterback, which is fascinating. But at the same time, when you have a kid on a rookie quarterback deal, you got to make hay with the free agency moves in order to build the best roster. And that also means having a good backup quarterback. I think it will be done. It may have to wait till May, but it will be done.
Yeah, I think I'm more antsy than I am concerned. I just want it resolved. I don't want to have to keep thinking about it. But I think you're right. I mean, McCarthy gives them that sweet spot where they can build a roster around him. And if he's good enough to be a starter, and if he rises to a higher level while he's still on his rookie contract, that's really when you become a Super Bowl contender. We just don't know about him. They haven't had a guy where they went into the season, with a young quarterback knowing that he was going to be the guy really since Bridgewater a decade ago. And then, of course, the injury to him derails all that. But, this is just an unfamiliar position for them to be in. I think they are set up to win long-term, not just 1 or 2 years when you consider he's still got 3 years left on his rookie deal and then a fifth-year option, which wouldn't be cost prohibitive. But they're in a spot right now where I think we all want some clarity. Just like if the Vikings, if KOC wanted Aaron Rodgers, he would be here. If Aaron Rodgers thought the door was closed, he'd be in Pittsburgh. So let's just consider that both ways. I don't know that this is resolved yet with Aaron Rodgers. Even with whatever they're saying, actions speak louder than words. I'm still waiting to see some finality on that, Lavelle.
Sorry for not paying attention. I was doing some quick research here, and Teddy Bridgewater is still a free agent.
Teddy, bring him. He was coaching his high school team, and then he came out of retirement to be the Lions backup in the playoffs last year. Teddy,
there's time for Teddy.
He's still only like 30. He's still only like 32. It's amazing. Like you think of him as being old because
terrible injury he suffered.
Oh god, that was so bad. Yeah, that to really set this all in motion. Like he gets hurt, and then they go and trade for Bradford. Bradford leads to, the Keenum year because Bradford gets hurt, which leads to Cousins, which leads to where we are right now.
You just mentioned a very interesting name. Don't count Case Keenum out.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Case Keenum out.
I think he would drive KOC crazy, but maybe. All right.
I thought it was interesting that Case was playing on the Harrison Smith team down at the Players Association golf tournament in Mexico a couple weeks ago.
Okay. Stir it up, Lavelle. I like it. Last one. Why is the Wolves' late game offense, their closing offense, so lousy? I want to get to this just because they had a great win, dramatic win over Denver, but if Russell Westbrook doesn't have 2 brain cramps in the last 15 seconds, we're talking about something different. Now, Russell Westbrook gets the ball after the turnover. He goes down, tries to make a layup, misses. Wolves get the ball back. Then he fouls Nickeil Alexander-Walker with 0.1 seconds left on a three-pointer. If that doesn't happen, if that sequence doesn't happen and Denver closes out this game, all we're talking about today is what you and I are going to be talking about right now, which is Wolves got a lousy look at the end of regulation. They got a lousy look at the end of the first overtime. They turned it over at the end of the second overtime. This has been a theme all year. When they need a basket, when they need to close out a game, when they need one shot to win, they can't get a good look. Why is this such a problem for a team with a lot of talent?
Yeah, that came up last night during the Denver game. And as I told you before we started taping, I was watching the game, and when the Denver had a late possession and the ball got in Jokic and he's in the middle of the paint, I was like, that's the worst place for Jokic to be because he can kill you by shooting, passing, or driving around you. And he flipped up a shot that was short. And Kevin Harlan's calling the game. Legendary Kevin Harlan says, Jokic for the tie. No! At that point, the Mortal Kombat in you needs to come out and say, finish him. That's not what the Wolves did in that situation. It ended up going to 2 overtimes against a team that they have dominated recently because they got matchup problems because they don't have anyone to stop and they give Murray and some of the other guys not named Jokic problems on the other end. And the Wolves have been taking advantage of those matchups. But yesterday was a game where end up going to overtimes. And it's not just the Denver game. There are moments where, I mean, you look at the periods. Yeah, they've scored 30 in the fourth here, 28 in the fourth here. But it's just moments where you can knock someone out, the final punch, to finish off a team, the close games. They need to turn into Joan Duran and close these games out. And something haywire goes wrong. Opponents raise their intensity on defense. They turn over the ball. Or Ant decides, I'm going to be the guy, and then everybody gets caught ball watching, and then that's not helping, because this team looks beautiful when they're moving out without the ball, and they're kind of free flowing and being unselfish. And maybe they need to keep that in mind when they get in these late game situations, because everybody's thinking Ant's going to get the ball, let's blitz him. So guys have to be ready. McDaniels has got to be ready. Randall, I think, should be huge in these moments where everybody knows that Ant's going to get the ball, where he can be dangerous just by floating around and being in the same neighborhood. There's ways to get that. I don't know if it's an X's and O's situation more so than a mentality situation. So I'm curious to see how this is going to shape out, because in 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to have playoff basketball here, and they cannot take these moments lightly.
No, they're going to have postseason basketball at the very least. If they make the playoffs, they have a good chance to make it as a top 6 now, because there's teams in the mix. Memphis has fallen way back. I think they've got a better than average chance of getting one of the top 6 seeds, but they're at least going to be a top 8. They would have a couple cracks at the play-in. But you're right. This is the kind of basketball that gets played in April and May. And I think the problem is threefold. I think the first problem is free flowing is nice, but when you get into those crunch time moments, you've got to have some sets, some go-to actions that you know you're going to get something good out of. I think that's on Chris Finch. I don't think he buckles down on them enough to get the shots they want, gives them exactly what he wants them to get. I think 2 is Ant. I think he's got to be more aware, he's got to make better decisions in those moments. And I think 3, I think this is where you miss Karl Anthony Towns the most. Like, you don't have a true bona fide 1A in those moments to take some of the pressure off. And I think Randall comes the closest. You've got other guys who are good offensive players. Naz Reid, when he's on the court and not suspended like he was the other night, he can be that option, but they don't have a guy like Towns who can get you a bucket like Ant can. Ant's really the only other guy I feel like who can get you a bucket just by himself, and they don't have that anymore.
I think Randall can be that guy, but I don't know. He's definitely not a 1A. He's more of a 2, but I'll take a 2. The thing with the Wolves offense, too, because you've got 2 defensive-minded players in Gobert and McDaniels on the court, I'll give McDaniels credit because he's raised his offensive game here in the last, 6-7 weeks. That puts pressure on the other 3 guys to provide offense. And sometimes it's easy to defend the Wolves because when McDaniels is not scoring, and Gobert is a non-factor, and Conley got off to such a horrible start. I wouldn't mind seeing Mike Conley take a clutch shot down the stretch. He's been playing a lot better basketball since the first month of the season. But this is when the Wolves get kind of predictable. So it's going to be up to the supporting cast, I think, to be prepared to be that guy when Ant is being double or triple teamed. John Paxson made a career of just being on Michael Jordan's right shoulder at the elbow. And when he would drive, he'd kick out to Paxson, he would hit the 3, and the game would be over. When he wasn't closing, it was Paxson hitting a big shot. Someone needs to be a Paxson here.
I also think their best closing time offensive lineup, if they just need 1 or 2 possessions and they're trying to get back in the game, might be Ant, Randall, and the 3 reserves, DiVincenzo, Na, and Reed, instead of Conley, Gobert, and McDaniels. I wonder if they've got to be a little bit more selective, a little bit more offense, defense, and put egos aside. I know Finch has done that some. I know he's not been afraid to mix and match, but they might need to do that even more because they've got to find a better closing formula than they've had now.
I don't mind that, especially if you have Ant, Randall, and Dante on the floor at the same time to give you some, be a perimeter threat. One thing I liked about Jaden McDaniels recently is that he's attacking the basket more.
Yes.
And when you have perimeter guys in those situations, he can be the guy, especially if they're trying to pass out on his double team. He can be the guy who could take a pass and just drive and attack the basket. I kind of like that idea. So,
okay. We'll see where it goes from here. It's going to be a fun final 6 games. They've got, it's kind of like a sandwich. You've got, I think, Philadelphia and the Nets on the road, on the road here. Those are games they should win, but then you got Milwaukee and Memphis, both of those also road games, and you close with Brooklyn and Utah. So you've got 4 very winnable games and then 2 very meaningful road games in the middle there.
The crazy thing is that the Wolves are 2.5 games out of 4th in the conference.
I know. Fourth is
got bunched up.
Yeah. 4th is still in play. 5th is definitely in play. 6th is certainly in play. It's gotten tighter, especially because Memphis fell back. There's there's one more spot in play now. The only bad thing about Memphis being in play is they do not have the tiebreaker over Memphis. They've already lost twice to the Grizzlies, even though they play them one more time in a few games here. All right, Lavelle. Good stuff as always. I'm sure we'll have lots more next week. We'll see where the Twins are at. We'll see where the Wolves are at. We'll see where the Wild's at. We'll see if the Vikings have solved anything. Probably not. Until then, have a good week. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Good stuff from Lavelle as usual. Wrote today about what makes an ace pitcher on a baseball team. Pablo Lopez, part of that discussion. Pablo pitched like an ace yesterday, as I talked about earlier, but do you consider him a true ace, a true number 1 starter? He's probably the Twins' best pitcher, but is he an ace? Go read Lavelle's column in today's Star Tribune and on StarTribune.com. Let us finish quickly with the cooler. Gophers women's basketball team. Kent Youngblood was on yesterday to preview the WBIT title game against Belmont. Gophers prevail 75-63. Not an easy win, but one that was fairly comfortable for them. They get to raise a trophy. They get to win their final game of the season. Not a lot of teams, as Kent wrote, get to win their last game of the season. Either that means you were not a very good team, didn't qualify for the postseason, but did manage to win your final game, although a lot of times that would probably end in the conference tournament anyway. So, yeah, not a lot of teams win their last game of the season. Gophers, one of them. Winning a championship. They're hoping they can use this as a springboard to bigger and better things. Not the tournament they want to be in. It's the second, it's basically the second-rate tournament behind the NCAA tournament. Good teams in it, though. They found out some things about themselves along the way, and they showed that they can kind of have that focus, have that togetherness to use that collective disappointment of how the season finished to go forward and win 5 games in a row to take that championship. So good for the Gophers. Good wins in that tournament, capping it off with a championship on Wednesday. The Wild, well, they got a point. It's the gentleman's point. Playing the teams from the Eastern Conference, these games tend to go into overtime a lot. They did the other day when they played when the Wild played the Devils. And they did again Wednesday against the Rangers. It was 4-4 going into the extra session. Both teams kind of grinding it out to the finish, make sure everybody gets a point. Rangers probably needed 2 more than the Wild did. They're trying to battle, get into Eastern Conference playoff spot. The Wild trying to hold on. Looks like they're in pretty good shape still. They're 7 up on Calgary. St. Louis won't stop winning, so whether they get the 7 or the 8 is kind of a question, but 7 up on Calgary. The only thing about Calgary is Calgary's played 2 fewer games still than the Wild. They've got 9 games left while the Wild have only 7 left. So if Calgary wins a couple games here, and they've got some soft competition coming up. I think they got a couple against Anaheim and a couple against San Jose down the stretch here. So you got to watch out. The Wild still got to keep racking up points. Doesn't always have to be a win. Just get it tied into the final, get it tied at the end of regulation. Make sure you get at least 1 point, maybe claim that extra point. Think they'll get it to the finish line. Kirill Kaprizov, is he ever going to come back? I don't know. It sounds like he's got some decent news from his doctor the other day, kind of ramp things up a little bit. We'll see where that goes, but I don't know. I don't know if just making the playoffs would be a pretty big accomplishment for this year's team. Don't feel like there's a lot of juice in the postseason, even if they make it, but they could always prove us wrong if and when they get there. That will do it for me today. Big one for the Wolves coming up here. They're at Brooklyn tonight. Should win that game, but that doesn't mean they will. Denver coming back to the pack a little bit. Denver might be in play for those teams coming up from the bottom. They lost again last night to San Antonio after the Wolves had put that double overtime loss on them the night before. So watch out for Denver in this race. You got Memphis, Golden State, the Clippers. Watch out for Denver as the Wolves try to catch some of these teams and make sure they get into the top 6. I don't think Denver's spot is as secure as it once was. Talk to you again on Friday. Good stuff. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.